Hello, and welcome to the July edition of the Dairy Market Update. This month I'll be looking back at how milk production performed over the spring and looking forward to see how production could develop over the coming year. I'll also be looking at how the spring weather has impacted on the markets. Now, spring is arguably the most important season in the dairy calendar. It's the time when weather conditions can have the most immediate effect on milk production, as well as longer lasting impact on feed quality and overall milk yields. The early spring weather this year was pretty horrendous. In terms of its immediate impact on milk, the beast from the east was the most disruptive single weather event for the country that I've seen in the 23 years in the industry. We estimate that we lost around 90 million litres of milk between the 28th of February and the 3rd of March, and this needed to be disposed of on farm. Milk collection can often be hampered by the weather, but tanker drivers are a hardy bunch, and what isn't collected on one day is often swept up the day after. At the start of March, the sheer widespread devastation caused by the beast from the east meant that just wasn't possible. The poor spring weather wasn't confined to just a few days at the start of March. Continual wet conditions made it impossible for many farmers to turn animals out to grass for fear of causing long-term damage to the ground. As a result, milk production rose much slower through the early spring than it had in previous years. As a country, we peaked around the 19th of May, which is a couple of weeks later than is normal. This later peak does mean we've started to close the gap on last year though, and that brings me to the latest milk forecast. The months of April and May came out 0.4% below our predictions, but milk volumes are now running in line with that original forecast. For the current year, we've increased our forecast slightly. That is a result of better market conditions and improved milk prices, which would expect to encourage a lift in milk yields. Despite this, total production is still expected to come out slightly below last year. Looking further ahead, milk production in the period April to June next year is currently forecast to be 0.9% higher than the spring we've just had. The forecast assumes more favourable weather conditions than we encountered this year. However, we also expect a slight increase in the size of the dairy herd, thanks to insemination decisions made in 2015 starting to reverse out. As we saw this year, forecasting milk production is notoriously difficult because weather conditions have such a significant impact on ground conditions, feed quality and ultimately milk yields. However, the forecast does give us a baseline, making it easier to see how actual production is performing against expectation. But what about the markets? The poor weather in the spring was not unique to Great Britain. Milk production has been impacted across Europe, with volumes down against expectations. This lack of supply is one of the reasons why commodity markets have rallied since the start of the year and prices are on the up. At a time when markets are normally expected to come under downward pressure due to the Northern Hemisphere peak, prices have actually increased. UK fat markets have been running at seasonal record highs this year. Whether they reach the extreme highs recorded in August and September last year is still to be seen. Even skim milk powder prices have been rising, up 14% in May compared with January. The large EU intervention stocks continue to hold this market back, but with stocks now selling, market prices are starting to firm. The long-term outlook for fat and protein markets remains good, with global demand expected to outstrip supply over the coming years. While the recent weather issues in Europe continue to cause a short-term challenge, the opportunity remains for farmers who are in tune with the market to benefit from dairy consumption growth across the globe. At AHDB, we will continue to monitor the key factors affecting milk production and dairy markets over the coming months. To find the most up-to-date analysis, please visit the markets section of the AHDB Dairy website.